So I'm going to give a really brief overview of deep sea mining. And then we have some guests who are going to be joining us from some negotiations that are happening right now, as well as from the South Pacific. So just to I'd like to start off by just giving context. So next slide. So what is driving this mining frontier and this extreme solution? In part, it's because we've mined all of the easy stuff. So we've already gotten, some of the easy to get ore. We've high graded all of the stuff, and so we're needing to look for, in more remote places. There's people who are happily staking claims on glaciers that are melting. And the other reason is because we really do very much need to transition off of fossil fuels. And that is also the increasing demand for metals and minerals for electric vehicles and renewable energy systems. So industry and governments call these critical minerals. This is a World War II term. It really generates this sense of urgency and nationalism. And the key characteristics of critical minerals, the definitions vary from all the different countries, but the two key characteristics are that it's really important for the national economy, and secondly, that it's going to face some kind of supply chain disruption. So that could be through either trade disputes or just that there's just not the supply at the moment. And so what that also means, though, is that the criticality, the critical nature of it can change over time, and that we do have some agency over that. It'll very much depend on society's needs as well as supply shifts, but also it will also be defined by, whether or not we're doing good planning, or when we saw with the pandemic how consumption really got reduced and really lowered that demand through public transit investment and alternative transit, all these sorts of things. We've got, some agency around curbing that demand curve so that we don't need to necessarily go to these extremes of mining the ocean floor. And the definition in Canada is not just for transition minerals, as in some other countries. It's also for military and defense purposes, as well as for things like healthcare. But would also just like to say that when the mining sector claims to be the savior for the climate crisis, you need to be skeptical and ask a few questions. So we'll move into the next slide. So what is deep sea mining? Well, it's the exploration and exploitation of mineral resources that are found in ocean depths between 400 and 6,000 meters. The three types of habitat in our oceans that are rich in minerals include hydrothermal vents. These are these underwater chimneys, and they contain polymetallic sulfides. There was just an announcement a few days ago about a new marine protected area from Nachalnuth up to Haida Gwaii, and those contain some of these chimneys. There's also seamounts, and these are underwater mountains. They're rich in cobalt, iron, and manganese. They have to be at least 1,000 meters high. And then there's this other habitat called abyssal plains. And this is a flat seabed floor, which is the most sought after for seabed mining. And these include polymetallic nodules. So that's a really wonky word. But basically, if you picture this potato-sized rock that are widespread and throughout the ocean floor, they contain manganese, cobalt, and copper. And these are found particularly in this area of the ocean called the Clarion-Clipperton Zone. So next slide. So just to situate where this Clarion-Clipperton Zone is, it's in the central Pacific Ocean. It's situated roughly between Hawaii and Mexico and Kiribati. So it covers spans about 5,000 kilometers at depths about 4,000 to 5,000 meters. So next slide. This is just to give you a kind of scope and scale of the Clipperton Zone there over across Canada, so you can just get a sense of the scale. So there is no deep sea mining yet. But there are a lot of exploration projects. So there are 31 exploration permits that have been granted, 17 of which are in this zone. And there's a couple of others that have been in the Mid-Atlantic Ridge and the Indian Ocean. It's the International Seabed Authority that governs non-living resources on the international seabed. So the fish and biodiversity in this common area are governed by other bodies. So there's the council and the assembly. The council of the ISA is made up of 36 states, and the assembly is for anyone from the UN who shows up. The ISA is mandated to govern the seabed resources in the area, quote, for the benefit of humankind as a whole, while also ensuring the effective protection of the marine environment. So this dual mandate is really what's creating a divide within the ISA, where negotiations for a mining code are underway. Most experts agree that it's impossible to mine the seabed while effectively protecting the marine environment. So the ISA is the one that's imbued with this power to develop this mining code, and this is what's currently being negotiated in Kingston, Jamaican, and where we're going to patch in some delegates and hear from them and hear some more stories. So next slide. Here we go. So the method of deep sea mining. So this is. These are some of these slides are ripped off from a Canadian mining company, which I'll talk about in a minute. But this is, so essentially they have a big fleet a big boat that goes out into the ocean, and they have these vessels that are about 30 feet in length, and they drop them down to the ocean floor, and because of how deep it is, it can take hours and hours for these contraptions to get to the bottom. And then next slide. Once they get to the bottom, what they do is that they sort of go along. This is in the Carring-Clipperton Zone. This is this abyssal plains. And so what they'll do is they sort of like shoot air and water and then they suck up these potato-like nodules, and then they shoot them back up these massive tubes back up to the vessel, where they then get washed, and then the waste from that, which would include some metallic content, gets re-released back into the mid-zone of the ocean. And so this is particularly concerning because these sediment plumes have an ability and are expected to travel like hundreds of kilometers. And so that's why in particular Indigenous peoples in the South Pacific and Hawaii and other places are really concerned about the impacts that this can have on tuna and whales and other things, as well as the impacts that this extractive industry would create on the bottom, which would basically just immediately kill the deep sea habitat, as well as impact things through the light pollution and the sound pollution and other things. So there have been, and there's unknown impacts of what it would do as well, because it's very much a carbon sink and temperature regulator for the ocean. So next slide. So I think just, the mining companies, in particular this one Canadian one, really claims that this is just a dead zone, that nothing lives there. Well, just technology has just advanced so that there's been an ability to learn more about this deep sea marine environment. And, they've discovered some, like over 5,000 species. They claim that this is probably just the tip of the iceberg, like maybe 10% of the habitat and the species and the biodiversity that's there. It's just really an area that's unknown And they're pretty remarkable. And because that far down it's dark, the temperature hovers around 0, like it's about 3 degrees down there. And so species have adapted and they go very slowly. There's sponges that take, 10,000 years to form. Reproduction is extremely slow. And even from a couple of these exploration projects, they've already assessed that they're just like they've just entirely destroyed the ecosystem. Next. So there is strong opposition to, can I have the next slide? There is strong opposition to deep sea mining and there we go. And so to date, there's been a lot of pressure. It seems to be one of those things that you can't believe it's actually happening. And maybe some of you are just learning about this, but you sort of think about it, it's like, what a stupid idea. And here we are. So there's been a lot of lobbying and pressure. And so to date, there's 27 countries, over 800 scientists and marine policy experts, the UN Human Rights Commission, 45 businesses and financial institutions, and some of those businesses include like BMW, like they don't want their EVs to be sourced by deep sea mining, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, the IUCN, and a number of indigenous groups, especially in the South Pacific, support a moratorium or a ban on the ISA approving deep sea mining. So Canada's position, there was a lot of pressure. They announced a moratorium on our national waters and at the Impact 5 at the Marine Protected Area Conference in January, February of 2023. And then later that year, they came out with a moratorium in international waters as well until it can be proven to be done with marine protected measures in place and taking a precautionary approach. And so while Canada's position is pretty good, there are, as we do because of our wonderful tax regime and incentive programs, there's Canadian mining companies who are lined up and eager to do deep sea mining. One in particular is the metals company. It's really at the forefront of pushing for seabed mining to begin. They got partnerships with Nauru, Tonga, and Kiribati, which have allowed them to get a number of these exploration permits, and also using Nauru to push things within the ISA to push for this mining code. And they've said that they are going to, even if the ISA doesn't come to agreement around a mining code, that they're going to file for being able to mine in the next year. This company was under a different name and partnered with Papua New Guinea to do seabed mining, and it was called the Nautilus Minerals. And they then all got really wealthy selling off their shares and left, and then filed for bankruptcy and left this small island nation, Papua New Guinea, with $157 million in debt. So, yeah, Canadian mining companies don't exactly have a great reputation overseas or in the undersea, I guess. So just to finish off, I just think like tar sands and offshore oil and drilling or fracking for gas, like we're going to more extreme measures to hold on to systems that don't really serve people or the planet very well. We don't have great mining practices on land. We're just about to come up to the 10th anniversary of the Mount Polley mine disaster. Many mines put our watersheds at risk and are left for communities to deal with and never be cleaned up, or for us to clean them up. And so do we really want this on the ocean floor? Deep sea mining isn't happening anywhere yet. It's just exploration, but we do need to stand up and ban deep sea mining. So without further ado, I'm going to present April Nishimura, who's going to moderate the panel and invite our guests in from overseas who are negotiating around this.
My name is April Nishimura. I'm a fourth generation Japanese American and traditionally adopted into Wilkwininet of the Gigsan Nation. My traditional name from Gwininet is Atkash, which means one who connects with spirit, including the spirits of others. So I'm really honored today to get to connect you to some amazing activists and Indigenous leaders from across the Pacific. And you might be wondering, why are we talking about this up here? And I'm happy to inform you that actually all of you here are caretakers of the world's largest ocean. So whether you live out here on the coast, whether you're taking care of salmon, whether you're protecting the Skeena River, the Nass River, the Witsinqua, all of that is leading to a healthy Pacific. And you have so many brothers and sisters that you haven't met yet who are also fighting for a healthy Pacific down in the South Pacific. So we're going to get to hear from some of those amazing folks today. Good to see you, Uncle Saul. So we're going to have Uncle Saul and Ekolu, who are from Hawaii, but they're actually calling in right now from Kingston, Jamaica. That is where the International Seabed Authority is meeting as we speak to determine the fate of if deep sea mining will be allowed, and if so, what regulations it will have. And it's also determining what the fate of the seabed and the Pacific Ocean will be. So I'll hand it to you without further ado, because I know you're stepping away from some very important meetings in order to speak with us. So we have Uncle Saul and also Ekolu. So I'll hand it to you if you want to share.
I would simply like to share with all of you that our participation here comes at an Indigenous perspective that is tied to our genealogy and a creation chant called the Kumulipo. And in our chant, it says that from the deepest part of the ocean, there is an energy that mixes with the organic genetic soup of the deep sea. And then out of this is the creation of the first living creature. And in our chant, it says that the first creature to be created is the uku ko'a, or the coral polyp. And therefore, what it allows us to understand is that we begin at the deepest part of the sea, and then all things are created up the vertical column of the ocean into the nearshore reefs, onto the land, into the hills, the mountains, and even taking flight under the constellations of the heavens. So we, the people, are ushered into this place once it's in balance, but we don't come until much, much later, after the earth is now in a place of balance. But when we do arrive in this place, our genealogy says that we are given responsibility for the care of our home, and that we don't come here to have dominion over all things. And so we see ourselves as a part of the ecosystems that have been created, and that we are now responsible for the care of it. The process of deep sea mining represents really an action that is intruding into the place of our creation. And if you get to see the process of what has been done in their exploration, it bothers me to see that the intrusion is very destructive, and that the things that we speak of in our genealogy chant are the places where destruction is going to occur. And I have to wonder, then, if we begin intruding into the places of creation, then what does that do for all other ecosystems? So the areas of intrusion have been the areas of phytoplanktons and zooplankton. They're part of the creation of oxygen and the sequestration of carbon. They are also the beginning sources of the food web, where the tiny phytoplankton and organisms are food for the small fish. The small fish are
Oh, it sounds like...
yeah. So it means for us that we have an inherent responsibility to ensure that we can continue to be a part of the ocean, which is our country, it's our home. And if we do not get ourselves in a position of trying to help this body to see that their proposed actions are really going to be impacting further destruction rather than trying to do what they are claiming to do, which is to mitigate climate change. And therefore, to consider destroying the source of life and creation for us in order to protect life and creation itself is an irony. So we're taking our position as Indigenous people to elevate our voices, and we're hoping that we can add to this the many other voices from Oceania, but understand that this is not about a, a, a people in Oceania and the Pacific only. This is really what is necessary for the global community because we are still one ocean, one people on one earth. And the earth is now calling for support and help to find respite, to find a time for rest and to find a time for replenishment. And she's glaring up in these incredible climate change events that we have never ever experienced before. So we believe that an Indigenous perspective and an Indigenous direction for support in climate change is being called for, and we want to be able to respond to that. And so we're calling upon all other Indigenous peoples to join our voices, and we're hoping to affect that change here at the International Seabed Authority, who are at the moment right now deliberating on how they're going to share the perceived wealth that they hope to gain by mining the deep sea. And I have to question as to whether or not they see it important enough to preserve life, and that life has greater value than the commercial use of the polymetallic nodules that they are promising to give wealth to with no destruction. And so I leave you with those thoughts and tell you that's why we're here, and we're hoping to transform some of the delegates here to that thinking and to include us in their deliberations moving forward, so that we will never be looked at and say, well, Indigenous people did not come to give their concerns, but now that we have, then if the body continues to move on and decide that they want to proceed with deep sea mining, then we can at least say that whatever consequences we have to face with those decisions, that we would hold them accountable to that. So thank you for allowing me, and I'll share this with Ekolu.
Hello, Kako. My name's Ekolu Lindsey. I come from Lahaina on island of Maui in Hawaii. And I've only been at this for a year now. And when I was first exposed to it, I thought, what a monumental task this is for all the things Saul just mentioned. How do you get an international body to understand that the ocean is life, and that we are about to stick our hands in there and rip the heart of that ocean out? To me, that's not okay. But how do you get them to understand that when the majority of them may be landlocked? And the thing, as I walk around here, is that there's only a couple of us who are really connected to these spaces. So how do I connect delegates that come from places that don't understand the ocean? Can I get them on a canoe? Can I get them on a ship? Stick them out in the ocean for 3 months at a time and see that there is a connectivity and there is life out there. The other thing that's missing in the space is Indigenous voices. The heart of our Indigenous communities understands connectivity and the importance of working with nature and not against her. Does nature win over economics? Hardly. It's a hard decision to make. When I speak with, say, a delegate from Nigeria who has all the challenges of humanitarian challenges, and they're looking at this as an economic gain boost for their communities. It's hard to answer that question. So a lot of these countries who are for it, they need the economics, or whenever you have economics, you also have greed, and then human nature takes over. So for me, being able to be a part of this and changing delegates' minds using our cultural connections and sensitivity is an important part of trying to get them to understand what is important. How do we make those decisions when the majority of people here are attorneys, steeped in international law and diplomacy? But I'm a simple guy. I like getting into the mountains and pulling weeds and going into the ocean and harvesting food. But they don't have that connectivity. And it's important that every single one of us that has this opportunity to become involved at some point in time, take that, educate yourself and become involved somehow. It's only through the multiple voices that exist within our landscapes that we can affect change. And how do we affect change? Is through relationships. It's okay to disagree with people, but it's not okay to start slinging mud. Understanding people's perspectives is an important one so that we can navigate change effectively together. Just recently, we had a gathering in Hawaii where we brought Oceania together to understand each other, but more importantly, to build trust. Irregardless of what side of the equation you are, who are you? So we got to know these people. Some of them were for deep sea mining. And at the end of our 3 days together, they had mentioned this was an awesome gathering to understand that we are all of the same mind. We all want to protect that ocean. How can we understand better to do these things? So I leave you with this, to understand both sides of the equation and try to affect some type of change in your own backyards, and find the avenues that can do that for you. So thank you for having me. Aloha.
Well, I want to send you a big mahalo. I hope that we'll get to see you in person at some point, but really sending you a lot of gratitude for all of your good work and a lot of strength for your continued advocacy for the next few weeks. So we have Alanna Matamaru, who is the director of the Te Ipukarea Society from Cook Islands. So Alanna, thank you so much for joining us, and we're really happy to hear from you. If you can try to maybe take around 10 minutes, that would be amazing.
Yes, kia ora to everybody in Canada and to the colleagues at the ISA, Nicole, Ekolu, Papa Sol, good to see you guys there. I am based in the Cook Islands, small island in the South Pacific Ocean, and just a bit of context, we are predominantly a water ocean state. We are made up of 99.9% ocean and 0.01% landmass. So yeah, lots of our resources come from our marine ocean state. And before I get into a Cook Island context in this topic of deep sea mining, I'll just first note what the joint push in the Pacific is when it comes to a moratorium or a precautionary pause on deep sea mining. It is a somewhat, I'd say, maybe split decision at the moment. So those that are supporting a moratorium or a precautionary pause, we have the likes of Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, Vanuatu, Palau, and just recently Hawaii, who have come out strong and putting a ban on deep sea mining in their state waters earlier on this week. So I congratulate the team on that massive milestone that has happened. But from the other end of the stick, to talk from a Cook Islands view, we unfortunately have mining interest here in the Cook Islands. So we have both high seas interest, given the Cook Islands is in a joint venture with a mining company from Belgium, GSR. So this relationship has been going on since 2013. So yeah, joint venture in mining in the Clarington-Clipperton zone. And on top of that, we also have national interest in polymetallic nodule mining, where we have these nodules within our EEZ. So as a result, our government has been proactive in putting together legislation to seek the opportunities of mining within our waters, and not forgetting that this is an EEZ, oceans that we share with our neighboring Pacific states, who also heavily rely on their natural resources that come from the ocean. But yeah, just a bit of an update on where legislation is at. We have a Seabed Minerals Act, which has been repealed and updated as of 2019. And just recently this month, we've had our deep sea mining regulations put up for review and comments. So this is really showing a push and a rush in, potentially putting this interest in mining in our waters to speeding things up significantly. Considering the ISA are still in discussions of putting together regulations, and the Cook Islands are already well ahead of that, it's quite scary. Speed of pace here back at home. On top of having these regulations, legislations in place, we are in our third year of a 5-year exploration phase within Cook Islands waters, where 3 mining companies have been granted licenses to undergo exploration, from nodule research to environmental research within our waters. 2 of these companies come from the United States, and 1 from Belgium, the one that our Cook Islands government is in a joint venture in. And of course, this is also very concerning, because we don't have this environmental data to begin with our deep sea ecosystem. And now we are becoming reliant on mining companies to inform us of what is in our waters, what life might be in our waters. Really shows that there is a bias in that system, and not transparent enough for our NGO or for our Cook Islands people, I'd say. On top of that, because we have a government that's very interested in wanting to explore opportunities of mining, government consultations then become very one-sided, where we see our government having consultations with our people, showing what the economic benefits would bring from deep sea mining, and little attention being brought to what actual risks are involved with this industry. So us as NGOs, we find when we work with our people, they have already been convinced that deep sea mining is the way to go. So it is an uphill battle for NGOs on having to try and match that pace of what our government has been saying to our people. But yeah, some of the works we have done in the past, and where we felt this pressure of, unfortunately, our people have been convinced, was back in 2021. We traveled on our traditional waka to all of our islands, our inhabited islands, there's 12 of them. This was about a 3-month-long journey, because our islands are so vastly spread across a big blue ocean. And we worked with our people to speak about ocean health and the impacts that they have currently from seabed mining, the potential impacts of seabed mining to ocean pollution, climate change. And I think that was the start of where our people actually were shown another angle to all of this, and that, oh, wow, there could be some risks involved with deep sea mining. So that was the real starting point of having this discussion and trying to get our people to question their member of parliaments more, in wanting to seek more information about what the risks are of deep sea mining. On top of this campaign, we have also been working really closely with our youth groups who have been really awesome. We're really finding that our youth today care a bit more. They care a lot more, and they're wanting more information to be made available, and they're asking a lot of the good questions as well too. So yeah, from our NGO point of view, it's really just trying to keep on top of these legislations that are coming out from government, trying to put the reins on a bit in this industry, as well as working with our community groups to better inform them and empower them of what the actual risks are, so that they can then feel empowered to go back to their member of parliaments and say, hey, actually, this is not what we're wanting in our waters. We need more time. We need a precautionary pause to at least know what we're working and dealing with here. Yeah, I think I will leave it there. I probably rambled a bit too much on about a context from the Cook Islands, but yeah, back over to you guys.
Thank you so much, Alanna. So we've gotten to hear from some amazing leaders who understand that our oceans and our struggles for healthy food sources and healthy waters are connected. And I wanted to share on the next slide, we can see, often we think about the world thinking about land, but our world is actually over 70% water. So I want to invite you all to start thinking about the world a little bit more like this. What if we started to think about the oceans, the Pacific, which is the largest ocean in the world, which is way larger than any of the land masses that we occupy? If we started to think about that as a place that also is deserving of protection, that also is a place that provides us food, and that, according to Uncle Saul and the Hawaiian creation myth, that is also actually the source of all life. And the deep sea in particular is like the womb of the ocean. It's quiet, it's dark. The creatures that live there live for thousands of years, and we know almost nothing about this place. We actually know more about the moon than we know about the deep sea. We've only studied about 5% of the ocean floor, and yet companies are saying that we know enough now to start to mine it. And the reason we wanted to have this panel here at Peace and Unity is not only because obviously we understand the importance of building peace and unity and connection, but because also this is going to affect us here. Right now, Canada has said that there's a moratorium on deep sea mining in its domestic waters, but Alaska is right next door, Mexico is nearby, and our salmon and our whales and other migrating species don't care about borders. If you go to the next slide, we see how we're connected ecologically through marine migration. We're also connected through, if you go to the next slide, through ocean currents. And our cousins in the Pacific know this because it's this ocean currents that allowed them to migrate through all these Pacific oceans. And it's also these ocean currents that threaten to blow this sediment dust through the waters up to 1,000 kilometers. So we didn't get that much into the details of what it means to deep sea mine, but one technology is that they send a tube 4,000 or 6,000 meters deep, tear up the seafloor and any creatures that are on it, pull it up, spin out anything they want, and then release the rest in the mid-ocean. And every time they do that, it creates a giant plume of sediment that suffocates fish and also can release heavy metals and potentially radioactive substances into the water, which will totally affect our fish stocks. It also has warm water waste, which is really dangerous to many species, including salmon, as well as light and noise pollution. And we have no idea what the effect of this will be. Deep sea mining has not occurred yet. They're only exploring it, and they really haven't explored what it means to do it at scale. If you go to the next slide. So this is a map of where these so-called critical minerals are. And I want to emphasize that these minerals are really important. We do need to stop using fossil fuels. There's no argument about that, but there's much better ways we could be resourcing these materials. Many minerals right now are not being recycled, and if we actually worked on that, we wouldn't necessarily need to go into the sea floor. But doing that might not be as profitable, because there's some projections that say that in a 45 square kilometer area, they're projecting making $30 billion worth of profits. That is what is driving this push for deep sea mining. There's absolutely no one who is saying this is good for the ecological health of the ocean. Even the proponents of this could not make that claim. It's clearly damaging, and we don't know the extent of the damage. And so right now, that's why folks all across the Pacific are asking for a moratorium, so we have more time to do more research. And some people are also asking for a ban, to say, let's not let this industry start. Because I know so many people here have spent years of their life, have had their community drained of time and resources because you're fighting off one specific pipeline, one specific mine, one specific logging industry. And we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to stop this industry before it even gets started. So imagine how many deep sea mining projects we're gonna have to fight one by one, but right now we could actually just say no. We want this industry to stop. So not only are we deeply connected spiritually and also ecologically, we're also connected because it's the same global corporations that are honing their strategies on our communities, and specifically on Indigenous communities, because Indigenous communities are caretaking and stewarding the majority of critical minerals in the world. So when they are going to come for critical minerals, they are going to be coming to Indigenous communities. And there's a very specific strategy that they use, and we know it well. None of this will be new, especially to the Wet'suwet'en, who experienced it very clearly with the Coastal GasLink pipeline. So the first thing they do is they come and they make big promises. It's going to create jobs. There's hardly any environmental impact. You're hardly going to notice it. They then start to divide communities by offering money and incentives. They basically see who they can give money to agree to it and start to create infighting in communities. And it starts to disintegrate the traditional relationships and governance that has stewarded our communities for many years. They then get large financial institutions and governments to collude with them. Meanwhile, they criminalize and silence individuals who are protesting in land and water defense. They extract as much as possible, as quickly as possible. There's often very little care for any kind of environmental damage. And then when it goes badly, and I say when, it's not if, it always goes badly. We just don't quite know when and how badly. When that happens, then the company usually dissolves, it goes bankrupt. The individuals who are invested in it somehow still always make a profit. They're able to extract money. But the company dissolves. Meanwhile, the local communities and local governments are often responsible for the cleanup. And then the irony of this is that somehow they often are able to start a new company from this. So we saw this example very clearly in Papua New Guinea, which is where the first deep sea mining exploration occurred. So as Nikki mentioned, the Metals Company, which is very vaguely named, which is a Canadian company, started an offshoot called Nautilus Minerals. That company went to Papua New Guinea, said, hey, we have a great project. You're hardly going to notice. It's going to create so much income. Why don't we do some exploration? And got 3 exploration permits. It then went very badly. They ended up dissolving the company and going bankrupt, but all the individuals who were part of it made a ton of money. That decision and that bankruptcy happened in Canada because it was a Canadian company. And the irony of this is that they saddled Papua New Guinea, which is a developing state, with $158 million of debt. And then after that, they had the gall to then create a new company and say, oh, we still have those exploration permits, so we'd like to restart this under a new company after we've saddled you with $158 million of debt and start doing some more deep sea mining exploration. We think it's going to be really great. And Papua New Guinea, which was originally very pro-deep sea mining, has completely changed because they said, we've gotten burned by this industry, and we know that corporations are not looking out for our communities, and they're definitely not looking out for our waters and our food sources. So I just want to see, does this sound familiar to anyone here? So these predatory strategies, this is an example of some deep sea mining equipment from the Nautilus Minerals Company. And the thing that I want to say is ironic is that Canada has done a good job of saying deep sea mining is not good for our oceans, we're going to ban it in our domestic waters. But meanwhile, they allow Canadian corporations to go around the world and do the exact thing that they say is not good for their waters in poor developing nations. So over 75% of mining companies worldwide are Canadian, and we need to start taking responsibility for what those corporations are doing around the world. And all of the folks here who live in Canada, you have a very special role to play in that and supporting our cousins who are dealing with this. So here we see An example that might look familiar for folks from the Wet'suwet'en, this is the aftermath of the Coastal GasLink pipeline, which I got to visit with Chief Namox, and he said that they were told it would be 10 feet wide, and this is what it looks like after that. And the logs that you see are their remediation efforts, and that's it. There's no more remediation that's happening. So similarly, deep sea mining is almost impossible to remediate. It's almost 6,000 meters deep, so it's way too expensive to do anything about. It's also very hard to monitor. You have to realize that some of this is happening in the middle of the Pacific Ocean underwater. So you can imagine that that would be very, very difficult to monitor, and already in the exploration, they've seen many violations have happened. But there is some good news. I'm not only a downer. We are starting to build more connections between folks up here and folks in the South Pacific. So here we see Gwyneth. Gwyneth and her husband Tony were able to come down and meet with over 100 activists across the Pacific. We had a convening of 20 Pacific nations. And if you go to the next slide. And we were also able to bring a small delegation of folks from the Pacific up here to the Wet'suwet'en and Giksan Nation. So this is Solomon Yo coming and tasting the water from our rivers. And Solomon is an amazing activist who, as a student, started a 3-year campaign that now is being heard at The Hague at the International Court of Justice that will determine if states can be held accountable for how their impact on climate change is going to affect future generations. And when he came up here, he said, we're so similar. He's like, the way that the nations up here operate and the way that we operate back home is so similar. We have a deep understanding of intergenerational need to care for nature. We love our elders. We get our food from our land and waters, and they also love to tease each other. So we also have a very special opportunity. I'm going to ask Gwyneth if you want to come up here. So I really want to thank you all for your time, and we'll have some time for Q&A, but we also have a very specific opportunity. And I wanted to put this picture up. So I wanted to put this picture up because when we had that convening of 20 different Pacific Island nations, the first thing we did was a va'a landing. So the same way that this gathering opened with a canoe landing, it's the same tradition there. Everyone came, they did their protocols, we welcomed them on the land. So we're so connected, and I'm so happy that we're getting a chance to actually build these connections in real life. And so I wanted to invite Gwyneth because we have a few opportunities for all of you, and I, from the bottom of my heart, want to ask you to participate. So we'll start handing out some letters. We have a sign-on that Gwyneth will speak to, and you can go to the next slide.
Simgigat sigirmana khandadit kubawulsuk. Side ke wulsabagum. Smogit lahaki and gnamstidil slom. Ikolgan nit nom skidum side litkut. Zalegil daimadam zogom yap am gil qarodum. Yam gil ax. Am gil. Yep, wulsabagum. Zislader daum idemi hodi kuslu yaltkum rot yep. Demi daus odzenum holsmogit laha. Normal nisisket dem side litkum. Nemdi de gebadem white listem zagus am schwanum. Abskidem gion dem litkum. Dem side ge dem litkum. Demi de nit adet warm as declaration dem side litnum as razos. Calls up and what kagait. We're all connected through Mother Earth, through the waters that flow. When we pass on, we return to Mother Earth. And so together we must stand and we must stick together to ensure that our voices are heard and our power can be felt by other nations, that we shall not stand alone when we are faced by disaster. Others will come and help us. It was amazing when we went and we stood with Lulu. Richard Wright stood right at the forefront. I will never forget this young man. The power in his being there was amazing. We went to court with Yahan, and we actually accomplished something. So no matter what government says, you're not going to win, they're full of SHIT, because we can win. Again, it's up to us as individual people, to stand our ground. We cannot be run over. We're not little dogs that need to be petted. We're human. We're powerful. We need to stand together and strong. So I'm asking you if you will stand with the other nations of this world and sign on to a petition that tells no to deep sea mining. It's going to impact our sea, it's going to impact our salmon, all living creatures, including us. So it was amazing to see that all the nations of the South come together, to see them welcomed ashore by other nations, and then to have it happen here was unbelievably powerful. I've never sat in a canoe. I was always terrified it would tip. But the power of riding in that canoe was amazing. And so I would like to thank all of the allied tribes for inviting us onto their lands and welcoming us and treating us like kings and queens with all the food, the hospitality, and the caring. Amiatni Losum.
So we have folks handing, yes, let's give a round of applause to Gwyneth. You can stay here.